Hi, thank you very much for coming today. My name is Shane. I'm a history major here at UCF. And my question has to do with the religious history in the Mediterranean. And it appears as though Jesus' bio, as it was going around the Mediterranean for 1,000 years before him, as well as, for example, Osiris' son Horus has pretty much the exact same bio. And I was wondering how you reconcile your faith and the historical accounts of the time.
You know, I have to say, in all gentleness, that that's just based on misinformation. This is garbage that's spread on the internet that just isn't true. And what's really funny about this is that these people who say this kind of thing never seem to quote the primary sources. They tell you that this is in Osiris or Horus, but you never see the primary sources quoted. When you look at the primary sources, you find out they're not at all parallel to the Gospels. And this movement to try to explain Jesus of Nazareth and Christianity against the backdrop of pagan mythology, Greco-Roman and other religions, was very popular back around the late 1800s or so in Germany. And the movement soon collapsed for two reasons. One was that when you examined the primary sources closely, they weren't really parallel. The parallels were spurious. There's nothing comparable, for example, to the resurrection of Jesus in pagan religions. Secondly, in any case, there was no causal connection between these myths and Jesus of Nazareth or the earliest disciples. In fact, one of the things that has characterized contemporary scholarship about the historical Jesus is what has been called the Jewish reclamation of Jesus. What has happened is that New Testament scholars have come to understand that Jesus of Nazareth was a Jew, and all of the disciples were Jews, and that therefore it is against the backdrop of first century Palestinian Judaism that Jesus is to be properly understood, not against the background of pagan mythology and pagan religion. And so what scholars have come to appreciate is this earlier approach back in the late 1800s, which is completely wrong-headed because it didn't understand the Jewishness of Jesus. And when you read Jesus against a Jewish milieu, the credibility of the Gospels has been tremendously enhanced. And this is, as I say, a movement that is in part being spearheaded by Jewish scholars and historians. And I spoke with James Crossley at the University of Sheffield a couple of years ago about this Jewish reclamation of Jesus. And I said, why do you think it was that this approach to Jesus in German theology used this pagan mythology as the interpretive grid for Jesus? Why, when it's so obviously wrong? And he said it was because of German anti-Semitism. And all of a sudden, the light just sort of went on for me. I thought, oh man, this is exactly the same sort of anti-Semitism that led to National Socialism in Germany right up through the Second World War. They wanted an Aryan Jesus. They didn't want a Jewish Jesus. And so New Testament theology was derouted into this interpreting Jesus in the framework of these pagan religions, which is a total distortion of who Jesus really was. So I would encourage you should just divest yourself of this point of view. It's utterly outmoded among scholars. There's a very good article that I can refer you to on this. It's by Mark Foreman, and it's going to be in the volume called Come Let Us Reason, which is being edited by myself and Paul Copan with Broadman and Holman. It's coming out probably in a month or two. And Mark has a wonderful analysis of the Zeitgeist movie. Have you heard of that movie, Zeitgeist? It makes this claim about Horus and Egyptian religion. And Mark Foreman just takes this to pieces. I mean, it's a piece of theological and historical dismantlement. So look at Foreman's piece if you don't believe me and see if what I've said isn't correct.